But I think there's also another problem, and that is in the United States, many people on the left, they also took a very hostile attitude towards Iran because they accepted the caricatures, the traditional Orientalist caricatures of Iran, that Iran is this backward theocracy, which is will take the country back to the Middle Ages, sort of like Saudi Arabia, which is a U.S. ally, and that Iran supports radical, I mean, not radical in the positive, but radical in the negative sense, radical Islamic groups that are going to take away human rights, as if there are any human rights in this part of the world or almost anywhere else where the Americans or the Soviet Union dominates. Sort of like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and these other groups which the Americans and their allies helped to create, whether it's through Turkey in Syria or Turkey and Saudi Arabia and others, or whether in Afghanistan or elsewhere where the United States used these very same extremist groups. Iran was sort of depicted from the beginning as a sort of evil Saudi Arabia, which supported evil terrorist groups that were extremists by nature. And I think in the United States, the left and the right sort of accepted this narrative for a very long time, even though Iran was supporting Nicaragua, the Sandinistas in the 1980s. It was supporting Cuba. It was supporting the resistance in South Africa, the anti-apartheid movement. And Nelson Mandela, when he was freed from prison, one of the first countries that he traveled to was Iran. And you know, one of the interesting things, in my opinion, is that when we saw the war on Iraq, even though Iran was opposed to the U.S. war against Saddam Hussein, the left in the United States was opposed to war, even though Saddam Hussein was a brutal murderer who had gassed his own people and gassed Iranians with American help, with European help. But the left was very opposed to war, rightly so. I was a part of the anti-war coalition. But when it began its dirty war in Syria through Turkey and other countries and destroyed so much of the country, there wasn't that support for Syria. And I think it was because of Syria's alliance with Iran. So Iran is so horrible or has been so horrible in the eyes of so many people in the United States, that it's very difficult for people to sort of see through the propaganda. And I think that is beginning to change, because I think some progressives in the United States, or increasingly some progressives in the United States, are recognize that Iran is not all that evil, that we're not as nasty as as some may think. And we have some people who have, for example, Hillary Leverett, who wrote a very good book, Going to Tehran, to people who worked in the White House. We have increasingly serious academics, serious activists, serious educated people who are questioning the narratives on Iran, and I believe, since Americans are increasingly questioning their own media, nowadays more people are willing to, let's say, question the narratives on Iran. So I think Iran has been in a particularly difficult situation when it comes to U.S. public opinion over the past 4 decades. Of course, I'm not saying Iran is a utopia, but I'm saying in my view, it is definitely no dystopia. So I don't know if I've answered your question appropriately, especially since it's pretty late at night and it's sort of complicated, but that's sort of how I see it.